Black women today. 100 years of pain, suffrage, and sorrow. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow. It's time to honor those erased from her story. It's time to rise and take our place. In this moment, we won't be erased. Time to rise, time to rise. Stand in our power today.
Welcome to our Kitchen Table Talks, a podcast of the public engagement initiative, Unerased, Black Women Stories. I'm Gwen McKinney, creator of Unerased. This trilogy of episodes explores women owning our bodies, especially the reproductive force of our individual and collective selves, of our mothers and their mothers, and our girl children yet unborn. We take a sober and supportive look at Black women through the sacred temple that is our body and soul. The theme at this table, Preconception Health, our life cycle from the womb to the tomb.
There are things that are in place that are affecting your pregnancy before you even get pregnant.
My story begins before puberty because I had to go through puberty without my mother. My mother died 1 month shy of my 9th birthday. My youngest sister was 2. My oldest sister was 20. I'm one of 7 sisters. My mother died at 43 years old having a hysterectomy. That really informed almost everything about my menstrual cycle and what would happen in my relationship with my uterus.
My mother had fibroids and had them removed when I was in college. And I remember that process just really vividly because I was in college and really started thinking, what options are in front of me? And so having gone to gynecologists and seeing things in front of me, a couple of things started not adding up for me. Number one, I was never offered, and to this day have never been offered if I wanted my eggs harvested. That's never been an option for me. What I've always heard is, you can get them removed and there's surgery. And I understand the trauma that the body undergoes when there's surgery involved.
A doula is, and the term is from the Greek word. It has a Greek origin. It's like a servant or a helper. In a lot of cases, it can be that someone becomes a doula because of like a family relation, like a sister or a cousin, a mom or auntie. And then there are people who go into it like as a profession. Doula is an emotional and physical support person, whether you're trying to conceive, whether you're pregnant, or whether you're considering whether to even have another child.
When I was 14, I got my first period, and it was very heavy. And my period was heavy from the time I was 14 until menopause at 53. I can't tell you how many times to stop the bleeding. My period would come on, and it would stay on for months at a time. And to stop the bleeding, I'd have to I can't even count how many over the course of my menstruating life, how many times I had to have what's called a D&C. And that would stop the bleeding. And maybe I wouldn't have to have another one for 5, 6, 8 years. But it was always intermittent when my heavy period would come on and it wouldn't go off.
I was at a gala and had on a dress. I thought I looked fantastic. Went through a whole day, the whole event. Towards the end, you're meeting people and people's parents, and someone's mother walks up to me and goes, "How far along are you?" Like up until 2 years ago, none of my fibroids were visible. My abdomen did not stick out, even though I'd had them for a few years. And so it has really been difficult for me because I keep saying, well, this is not my body. And then my other side is, oh, but girl, it is. And so either you can fight this continuously, or you can say, hey, this is where you are. This body has helped you climb mountains. This body has helped you get degrees. This body has done all these amazing things. Don't discount it because there is an addition to something that you had little to no control over.
I would extremely highly recommend having a support person. Having someone who you know you can count on to be your support person in your labor and delivery. Because having, not only having that person just as a support, but having that advocate. And unfortunately, we have to have advocacy to an even higher extent because of the horrible statistics that we're dealing with.
A lot of Motrin. It was painful. A lot of pads, a lot of tampons, embarrassing moments. Because 2 and 3 pads were not enough, doubling up on tampons. It was recommended that I have a hysterectomy. Well, that terrified me. A naturopath gave me a natural remedy that stopped the bleeding while I could look for a second opinion. Most women don't look forward to menopause with all of the things that entails because it says something about the aging process. Actually, menopause was a savior to me.
And if anyone looks at any history line of the medical field and Black women, they ain't never been kind. It's never been about supporting and loving us well. And so can I create a space that allows me and others to be vulnerable? And that's not just the body posy fun parts of it, right? It's this is crap and I didn't ask for any of this in the first place.
The providers, the whole team needs to listen from start to finish. That's it. And I know that a lot of people doing like these implicit bias trainings and diversity training, all that is nice. But at the end of the day, what it boils down to is listen to them when they say something the first time, not the second, not when she's gasping for breath, not when she's screeching in pain. Like listen to them the first time, period, point blank. My name is Alicia Henson, and I am a doula and traveling lab scientist.
I am Javita Hill. I am Executive Director of the Mayor's Office of Engagement for Women in Philadelphia and the Executive Director of the Philadelphia Commission for Women.
My name is Portia Childs, pronouns she, her, hers, and I am the Associate Director for Global Research at a small private university.
Hello, thank you for joining us on Unerased. I'm your host, Carolyn Malachi, and I'm here with Dr. Soyini Mattis Hawkins. Dr. Hawkins, thank you so much for joining us at our Unerased table.
Thank you so much, Carolyn, for having me. I'm honored.
So are we. This conversation is looking at Black women's bodies as a sacred temple. So we're thrilled that you're here to provide your voice and expertise on the subject. And since you're an OBGYN, your expertise really centers on women's ability to give birth. Feel free to refute that. If you will.
It is. I at least play a part in getting there. Yes, ma'am.
So borrowing from our theme for this episode, which is preconception health, our life cycle from the womb to the tomb. Can you offer wisdom on that theme, as in, whether a woman decides to have a baby or not?
Yeah. Wow. That's powerful. Just that statement right there is powerful because a lot of times the assumption, especially from a doctor's standpoint, when we approach the patient, is to protect whatever that desire is. May it be for fertility, which sometimes we will default to, but sometimes a woman's desire is not centered around fertility. It may be centered around just being comfortable in their body, comfortable with their GYN parts and their womb and their sexuality. And it may not all center around conception and fertility. So just in that statement alone, there's power in understanding that, women are free to choose the path, may it include fertility or not.
Amen to that. So let's talk about maternal risks among Black women, maternal death, preterm births, infant mortality. Some say the maladies have a lot to do with the generational cycle that impacts Black women's birth outcomes and health disparities in utero. Would you be able to speak to that?
Absolutely. So yes, unfortunately, here in the US of A, right, a very developed land that we live in, we have one of the highest maternal mortality rates. It is literally on par and almost literally competing with some third world countries when it comes to Black women. And it's not just a maternal rate. It's exactly what you've already talked about and alluded to. It's our perinatal rate of loss of our infants and our children. Even in utero, we have more miscarriages and more preterm labors and preterm deaths. We have, unfortunately, more complications surrounding pregnancy throughout the phases of pregnancy and in the immediate postpartum period. And it begs to ask the question, why? Why is this disparity so great in this great land that we live in? And why is it so disproportionately affecting Black women? A lot of it has to do not necessarily with the fact that there's more that needs to be done in our teaching, but some of the biases that exist in medicine are unconscious. To put it quite frankly, it's not that I think the entire medical community is out for Black women, but the unconscious biases that exist in the way that we are perceived, in the way that we are treated, when we try to advocate for ourselves or empower ourselves, when we say, this hurts and we feel pain. There are studies that have literally looked at this and found that a lot of medical professionals feel like Black women do not feel pain, period. And that is a part of the problem. It's unfortunately a vicious cycle. It's not generational. Here in 2021, we have not made much progress over the last decade or two.
You know, everything that you're saying right now makes me wonder about the post-birth experience, because if Black women aren't getting the proper care while we're pregnant, some of us may be going through postpartum and not even know what that is or how to be cared for during that period. So can you break down what that phase of motherhood is and maybe, what folks should be reading or how they should learn about that?
I love that. I love that you said what folks should be reading, because I think that empowerment, that self-empowerment is crucial. It should be, honestly, a very joyous time. It should be a celebrated time. Emotionally, there are lots of ups and downs in the immediate postpartum period. There's a lot of joy and pride and just like, I made it. I survived the last 6, 8, 9 months, however long, their pregnancy was, and I made it, and it was a success. What we have to be careful of is kind of feeling and putting on the pressure on women that have just delivered to always be on the happy side of that. Because the reality is that our emotions can be kind of all over the place, and it's not always what many would perceive we should be able to control. Sometimes it feels like we don't have that control because of that hormonal shift. It affects us emotionally, it affects us mentally, it affects us physically. We're exhausted. We're dealing with a newborn and all that comes with that 24/7 care of a new child. And for many women, we haven't done it before. We don't know, the textbook way to do it. So there is that thing that you referred to as postpartum or postpartum depression, which is a real phenomenon. And prayerfully, women are keeping in their circles individuals that will be looking out for that, right? That will be actually evaluating their emotional state and their energy constantly during the postpartum period to be able to say, my dear, you're not acting like yourself, or how can I help, or where do you need some assistance? Reading about it and understanding what the signs of that might look like ahead of postpartum, ahead of delivery, I think is something that should be in the education of pregnant women. Maybe you're getting it from your physician, or maybe you're getting it from a mom's group that you join, or a pregnant mom's group that you're joined, or maybe you're just getting it from a good old, what do you do when you're pregnant book that you're reading. But I think if we're empowering more women to understand what the natural physiological changes they might expect to go through, would look like ahead of time, we might be arming them with the ability to recognize it as such, and therefore ask for help if needed. And if not themselves, the individuals around them that are supporting them to be able to recognize it and say, sweetheart, I think, you might need some help. How can I assist you?
Yes, and that's absolutely key. Thank you for that. Thank you so much. There's one question that comes up repeatedly with no answer. Why are Black women struck with uterine fibroids 3 times the rate of white women? What do you say to that? And how close do you think we are to a cure, perhaps?
Yeah, I pray that we're close. I pray that now that we're trying to amplify the message around the impact that fibroids can make, especially for Black women, that we're going to push the efforts to get an answer to that exact question, that we're going to push to, get more research, more funding, more support, more resources in the areas that will actually help us understand better what fibroids are, what the consequences of it are, and hopefully in turn, how to better treat it. Is there a cure for this? For Black women in particular, it's for all women, it's multifactorial, but there are so many components that the women, and in particular Black women, we kind of might be able to highlight and speculate, because the research is ongoing. And that's why I say speculate, because sometimes it's, not always concrete. Speculate as to why our percentages and our numbers are so much more. One of those has to do with literally one of the things we're most proud of, our melanin. Our melanin blocks sun. Vitamin D deficiency is pretty well documented to disproportionately affect African American people because of our melanin. And vitamin D is an essential nutritional source that actually helps with our cellular health. And when you have a deficiency of such, you actually can have more cellular damage, inflammation, and things like that has been linked to fibroids. Isn't that something?
I've never heard that before. That is.
Yes, ma'am. And that's just one thing, obesity, cardiovascular and diabetes disease, the fact that we take on stress and mental anguish. And if you want to talk about generational things, we don't necessarily in the Black community deal with mental health, I think, in an optimized way. All of those things add stress to our body, hands down, estrogen, progesterone hormones, we all know that they have a part to play, probably the biggest part to play in fibroid growth. But the reality is all women are born with uteruses, and all women with uteruses and ovaries that are producing those hormones can make fibroids, but not all women do. And it does disproportionately affect Black women.
So in the meantime, while all this research we hope is being done, and while we're pushing to learn what in the world is really causing us or Black women to experience this more than other folks, what do we do?
We need to address it head on. We need to ask for more. We need to almost demand that we get more research, we get more funding, we get more attention to the matter. Because the reality is, fibroids are benign. They're not going to kill anybody, right? Not like cancer, right? There's a lot of research. There's a lot of attention around a lot of cancers, and not that we should take from any of that. But if you put on scale the devastation that fibroids can cause, Again, mentally, physically, but what about the resources that it's using up in, in the economy? What about the lost productivity that these women are having to essentially, endure and build their lives around? They can't take care of their family sometimes, or their children. We, have looked at publications and white papers that have looked at the fact that just having fibroids and dealing with them sometimes hinders the advancement of women in the workplace. There's so many avenues that fibroids and the way that they affect women impact that we have to demand more. We have to start to be like, okay, yeah, no, this is not something that we're going to just scave over because it only has to do with menstrual cycles. And we, women should already just kind of know. You have menses, you're going to suffer once a month, and it's just a thing that you're going to have to deal with. That's no longer the accepted outlook. That is no longer going to be the okay, you just got to deal with it. Now we have to start to demand that we, put more into efforts to figure out how can we actually combat this and thrive.
Many Black women say that the problem with treatment of their conditions, the problems begin in the exam room with the doctors who either don't listen to them or don't value their worth as Black women. And these are women who are coming to the doctor as their own best health advocates. They're living in their bodies. So as a Black woman who is a doctor, can you relate to this personally? And how do you address this problem professionally?
I can relate to it personally because long before I was a doctor, I was a Black woman suffering with fibroids. Long before I understood my options and I even understood the impact it could make on my life, because I was asymptomatic when I was diagnosed and the diagnosis was missed. My uterus was huge when I found out I had fibroids. So long before I was on this side of the discussion, I did endure that same heartache of, okay, so I was just here 3 months ago and you didn't tell me that my uterus was enlarged. What's up with that? I think that I want to put the power back in the patient's hand because it's only so much. My mama taught me it's only so much you can do about other people's actions and behaviors, right? Take that power back because I agree with you. We are our best advocate. When it's time to step out and say, I need a second opinion, maybe I need a third or even a fourth, feel comfortable in doing that. And that's, it's so much to unpack with that. Resources, again, insurance, what are the barriers to women feeling like if they wanted to, they can. We have to unpack that. We have to move those barriers out of the way so women can start to feel like they're in control of that pathway of their health. And the other thing that I want women to feel more comfortable doing is a little bit of the research, coming kind of armed with the understanding of, okay, what about this option? You didn't talk about that one. And I don't necessarily think that all doctors are out to, hide and take away options from women. But sometimes some of the doctors just don't know, or some of the doctors only present the options that they can do, which is not right. Now we know because of these type of conversations, because of educating the masses, that there are other types of doctors or subspecialists. Myself, I'm a subspecialist. I have decided to dedicate my life to this. Literally, I've decided to dedicate my life to fibroids and the treatment of and surgical options because my heart is in the operating room, right? So now women know there are specialists in this field, right? Just like there are specialists that take care of endometriosis and there are specialists that do adolescent medicine. And if I break my finger, there's a specialist that is not going to take care of my elbow or my knee, but will take care of my finger. So that's the way we have to look at our bodies and empower ourselves. So seek a healthcare professional that you think is going to be in your best interest. You don't have to put up with someone that's ignoring your symptoms or ignoring your cry out for help or telling you you only have one option and not really kind of explaining to you why the other ones don't fit.
This has been such a golden conversation. And as we sort of wrap it up, Your audience is Black women interested in becoming the shepherds of their own bodies and nurturing their health as women and mothers and healthy human beings. What's your best advice?
My best advice and my mantra, honestly, is live your best healthy life. Your with the capital YOUR, because we're all very uniquely made. We're all very uniquely experienced, and we all very uniquely have, things going on in our life. It almost pulls back to the first part of our conversation. We all very uniquely have different goals. Some of us want to be mothers. Some of us just want to be career women. Some of us want to live in nature. Some of us want to be vegan. Some of us want to, explore the world and eat wonderful food, eat, pray, and love. You know what I mean? Live your best healthy life.
Dr. Hawkins, thank you so much for being with us today.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Hey, my name is Kramer, and I'm an artist from Prince George's County, Maryland. This is my song, Martian.
I tried to find another, but they all led me astray. They don't look at me with your eyes. You could kill me with one look my way, and I wouldn't mind if I died. Just shoot me another glance that says, look at me, that says, you look like that special kind of girl. You must be what a match we could be. You must be. We could go get higher off of love. So come on, baby, match me. Just match me. So I'm sitting in this park. Mind over matter. Thinking, do I even matter? I tried to catch your eye, but she's even better. So do I even matter? Just say, you look like that special kind of girl. What a match we could be. We could go get higher over love. So come on, baby, match me. Just you must be from another planet.
This is our moment to tell our story, how we offered our gifts without glory, through the pain and the fears, the trial and the tears. Despite the veil, we did not fail. Unerased Black women, unerased Black women.
Thanks for listening to Kitchen Table Talks, made possible by support from Craig Newmark Philanthropies, the Park Foundation, TD Charitable Foundations, and anonymous donors. Our theme song, A Black Woman's Love Song, features Latasha Brown on vocals and Glenn Pearson on piano. Special thanks to our advocacy partner, The White Dress Project, our coordinating producer, Bria Russ, and host audio producer, Carolyn Malachi. We had help from Levi Perrin, Alyssa Davis, and Alex Kavoris. I'm Gwen McKinney, creator of Unerased, inviting you to tune in to the next episode. And while you're there, please subscribe and visit us online at srpunerased.com.